morning, everyone. We are here to present the male and female reproductive system and its function.
When examining the reproductive system, the first thing to mention are the primary sex organs. These are also known as the gonads. And the interesting thing with this is that unlike the lungs, or the heart, or the liver, or the stomach, which are all found in every human, these are organs which depends on the sex of the person. The male gonads are called the testes, and the female gonads are called the ovaries. The purpose of the gonads is to secrete several different sex hormones and also to produce sex cells, which are called gametes. The gametes produced in males are sperm cells, and the gametes produced in female are egg cells. And when a sperm and an egg meet as a result of a sexual intercourse, fertilization can result, which leads to a zygote, embryonic development, and eventually the birth of a new human being.
But the primary sex organs are not the only one component of the reproductive system, so there is a lot more to discuss. There are also accessory reproductive organs. There includes a number of ducts and a gland as well as the internal genitalia. Since the reproductive system is the only system that varies dramatically between male and females, it is but to examine it separately, so let's start with the male reproductive system.
As we said, the primary sex organ in males is the testis, which is where testosterone is produced. And these are housed in the sac of skin called scrotum, which is divided by a midline called septum. It is here that sperm are produced, which may seem like vulnerable place to store this critical asset. But the lower temperature external to the body is ideal for sperm production. Each testis is surrounded by a tunica albuginea, followed by the tunica vaginalis. Inside the testis is divided into lobules, which contains seminiferous lobules, and these are where sperm is made. From spermatogenic cells, a process called spermatogenesis. These tubules converge to form a straight tubule that leads to the red testis. From here, sperm will then move through a system of ducts, starting with the epididymis, where they are stored until ejaculation during a sexual act. When this happens, sperm cell move through the vas deferens, the ejaculatory duct, and eventually moving into the urethra, just like urine at the end of the urinary system. In doing so, it leaves the penis, which is copulatory organ whose purpose is to deliver sperm into the female reproductive tract, and together with the scrotum. This make up the external genitalia of a male.
The penis contains three cylindrical shafts of erectile tissue, each covered by dense fibrous connective tissues. The erectile tissue is spongy, containing smooth muscle and muscular spaces. And when these spaces fill up with the blood during sexual arousal, the penis will enlarge and harden. Status called erection, which enables penetration. Beyond the gonads and external genitalia, there are used accessory glands. These are the seminal glands, prostate, and bulbourethral glands. Starting with the seminal glands, these sit in the surface of the bladder and produce a fluid called semen. During ejaculation, sperm cell will mix the semen in the ejaculatory duct, and the semen will enhance sperm motility or fertilizing ability. It does this through a mixture of hormones and other compounds that suppress the immune response in the female's reproductive tract. Destroy bacteria and help sperm stick the walls of the vagina and prevent drainage. Semen actually makes up the majority of the ejaculate by volume. The prostate is a small gland that encircles the urethra near the bladder. The purpose of the prostate is to contract during ejaculation in order to allow prostatic secretion to enter the urethra and join the ejaculate and activate the sperm. Lastly, the vulvarethra glands sit near the prostate and product a mucus that lubricate the gland's penis or head to the penis during sexual arousal.
Now, let's move on to the female reproductive system, which is quite a bit more involved. As we mentioned, the female gonads are called ovaries. Here, the female gametes are produced, which are egg cell or ora, as well as the sex hormones estrogen and progesterone. In addition, there are accessory ducts, which are the uterine tube and the uterus. There is also the vagina and the external genitalia of the female. The ovaries are built like testes, though they are inside the body, surrounded by the fibrous tunica albuginea, followed by a germinal epithelium, held in place by various ligaments and supplied by ovarian arteries. An ovary has an outer layer called the cortex and an inner layer called the medulla. In the cortex, we see such called follicles, each of which houses an immature egg called an oocyte, and the production of mature egg cell is called oogenesis. When a primordial follicle matures, it becomes a vesicular follicle with a cavity called an antrum. This follicle will then bulge out of the surface of the ovary, allowing it to eject the oocyte, and this event is called ovulation.
This will then enter the uterine tubes or fallopian tubes, which have sections called the isthmus, ampulla, and infundibulum, which bears projections called fimbriae. Fertilization will occur at some point along the fallopian tubes, which end at the uterus, also known as the womb. This receives the fertilized egg, retains it in the uterine wall, and nourishes it through the fetal development. The uterus has a rounded top region called the fundus and narrow neck at the bottom called the cervix. Well, with its cervical canal, the wall of the uterus is quite thick, comprised of three layers. First, the perimetrium, the bulky myometrium, made of smooth muscle, and then the endometrium, which lines the uterine cavity or lumen. Going through the cervical canal, we reach the vagina, the copulatory organ for the female, which receives the penis during intercourse. Further out, we arrive at the external genitalia, collectively known as the vulva, which consists of the mons pubis, skin folds called labia majora and labia minora, the clitoris, and the vestibule. Also, qualifying as part of the female reproductive system are the mammary glands, found in the breast, which are similar to sweat glands, but they start to produce milk during pregnancy before a baby is born. Each breast has a ring of pigmented skin, called an areola, from which a nipple protrudes. Each mammary gland contains lobes separated by fibrous connective tissue and fat, which themselves contain smaller units called lobules, which contain structures called alveoli, which produce milk. This milk is transferred to a lactiferous duct, which leads to a lactiferous sinus, and this is where milk collects when a mother is nursing.